Light and Power is one of the Emera group of companies, and it's a pleasure to invite Dave McGregor, Chief Operating Officer of Emera Caribbean and President of Grand Bahama Power, to join me to talk about renewable energy innovations across the Emera Caribbean affiliates, Barbados Light and Power, Lucelec in St. Lucia, and Grand Bahama Power. Welcome back to What's New Radio, Dave. It has been a while.
It's been too long, Nicole, too long, but here I am. Yeah.
So November is Energy Month, and I wanted to talk about the transition to renewable energy across the Emera Caribbean family. Let's get back to the basics. You were actually working at Light and Power at the time we installed the solar farm.
Yeah, I was really the sort of, instigator of the project. Kind of came down to Barbados in 2013 and worked through till 2016 to prepare the project. It was a 10 megawatt project, the largest in the East Caribbean at the time, and still probably one of the largest. And really, my role was to make it happen. I worked with a good project manager and a great project team there. And proud to say we brought it in on time, on budget, within about a year's construction schedule.
Can you tell us, what does photovoltaic solar mean? And what was the thinking behind building the plant in St. Lucie?
Yeah, so solar photovoltaic, or just solar, I think is probably the best way to describe it. It's really transforming the sun's energy into electrical energy, which we can then use across the grid to power the homes in Barbados. You know, it's reasonably simple technology. There's no moving parts. It's very reliable once it's been constructed. And why in St. Lucie? It's basically, that's where we had some land. We had some nice, south-facing land, which is best for the sun exposure. It was unencumbered by trees and large buildings. And we have a good transmission network up there. And in fact, it became the cornerstone of what we called the St. Lucie Energy Gateway, or the St. Lucie Clean Energy Gateway, because we still have plans. We had plans then, and we still have plans now to build a wind project up on the hill above the solar plant up at the Lambert site. We're still keen to work with others to get the wind project done as well, thereby sort of transforming St. Lucie into the renewable energy hub that we envisaged back in 2013.
That sounds really exciting. I remember What's New Radio recorded a sound tour of the solar farm, and we could hear the black belly sheep that grazed there. Now, whose idea was that?
Well, I'd like to say it. So I had a thought, and I actually had trouble convincing my bosses and peers at the time that I thought that grazing black belly sheep was a good idea. So what I actually did, I went out on a limb and I paid for myself the first 6 sheep I bought from a local gentleman that I knew. I actually put it down on my expenses. And those 6 sheep over the last, 6, 7, 8 years have transformed into a flock of about 600 sheep. I think the biggest in Barbados. So
wow.
What is important is that we knew we had to work with local farmer, local agricultural expert. You can't just put the sheep in the field and hope they're okay. You've got to make sure they're fed well, they're watered well, they're looked after, they have veterinary care, they have supplementary diet products, et cetera, to make sure they're always going to be fit and healthy. And I'm pleased to say, as I say, the flock is at over 600, I believe. So that one worked.
That sounds good. Sounds really good. When I was preparing for this interview, I asked you to think about 3 clean energy projects or trends in renewable energy across the Emera Caribbean affiliated companies. So here we go. What are you most excited about? What is your number one?
I would say my number one, and maybe you're not expecting this, maybe you're expecting me to say solar or batteries. And, both of those are exciting, but my most exciting prospect, I think, as somebody responsible for a couple of electric utilities, is vehicle electrification. So electrification of the transport sector. That's electric cars, that's electric buses, that's electric motorcycles. And of course, Barbados is actually, I would say, probably the lead island in the Caribbean on vehicle electrification. Really thanks to the folks at Megapower, who we've supported on their journey since 2012 on bringing the Nissan Leaf and now the MG range of cars to the island. And they were also instrumental in working with us and the Barbados government in bringing the fleet of full-size electric buses to the island. And I don't know if you've managed to take a ride on one of those, but with yeah, fantastic vision by the government and enabled by stakeholders such as Mega Power and ourselves to make that one a reality. And I think there's about 50 electric buses now on the island, and the whole stock of electric vehicles is, I think, over 1,000 now, which is truly remarkable, and backed up by a charging network that is available both publicly and on private sites. And, as an electric vehicle owner in the past, I can certainly vouch for the cost savings that electric vehicles provide, both in terms of fuel, and especially now over the last 2 years when we've been paying extraordinary amounts for gallons of gasoline, petrol, and diesel. And yeah, you really save about 60% on operating costs. That's combined fuel and maintenance, because of course the electric vehicles require very little maintenance as well. I'd say that's one. And really, trying to take the experience that we had in Barbados to Grand Bahama Island, where I also work, and the Bahamas in particular, because it really makes so much sense for small island states. For Canada with its cold winters and long distances, it's getting there. But for a Caribbean island with the small traveling distances and very expensive gasoline, makes all kinds of sense.
As you were talking, I reflected on years ago when we started out with our first electric vehicle here at Leighton Power. We actually called it Neo G. That name came from an employee competition we had here. We've come such a long way since then. So that was really interesting.
Neo G, if I remember, stood for no emissions or gas. Is that right?
Yes, it did. That was a while ago,
So what I'm also excited about with vehicle electrification is the ability that we're working on at Emera head office, where I also spend some time, on vehicle to home and vehicle to grid technology. So this is the ability of your electric vehicle to be able to power your home if required. And, outages happen from time to time, unfortunately, mainly due to weather. So your vehicle could actually power your home in the case of an outage, or provide electrical services to the utility for a fee. So you could have your car, sitting whilst you're at work, perhaps charging. But most vehicles sit doing nothing 95% of the time. They're either at home when you're sleeping or at work when you're working, and you're driving it for the an hour a day or 2 hours a day. The rest of the time it's sitting doing nothing. So it might as well be working for you during that time, and as long as your vehicle is charged and ready to go when you want to go out or you want to get to work, it's a win-win for the customer and the utility who gets more value out of the vehicle.
Sounds great. Thank you, Dave. Now let's go to your number two.
Number two, I've got a kind of 2 and 2.5 as well. So AMI and smart grid. So AMI stands for Advanced Metering Infrastructure. I just call it smart grid. So this is about the utility and the customer having greater visibility of their electricity usage. It allows the utility to have real-time view of the customer's usage in the home, allows us to balance the grid a lot better, especially now when we've got a lot of, Barbados has an extreme amount of rooftop solar, about 3,000 installations, totaling almost 70 megawatts on customers' homes. So the utility needs to be able to understand where that energy is, where it's coming from, where it's going to every second of every hour, every day. So what the EMI system does is give the utility some eyes and ears and be able to manage that. It also gives the customer greater eyes and ears in managing their electricity bill and electricity usage. I think we all complain about the price of electricity these days, no matter where you are, if you're in Barbados or in the United Kingdom or in Canada. It's a common complaint on the price of electricity in all our jurisdictions. But the one thing the customer can do is try and manage it and try and understand their energy usage, understand when they're running the tumble dryer or the washing machine, that, how much it's costing them. Is it costing them $1 an hour to run that? Well, maybe, maybe I can consolidate the load. Maybe I can do things a little differently. Maybe I don't need to run half a load. So, giving the customer that visibility will allow them to be in greater control of their energy usage and therefore their electricity bill.
That sounds really good. And we're literally putting the power in the hands of the customers, which is amazing.
So the other piece of it, which I think is something we're just started working on now, and maybe customers will, I don't know, find this a bit scary, but in Grand Bahama, not so much in Barbados, because Barbados folks use a lot of rooftop solar water heaters. So that's your hot water is heated directly by the sun with a device and a canister on top of your house. But I will say in the Bahamas, in Grand Bahama Island, the water is generally heated by electricity in a tank. And there's basically like a big kettle, which is basically running on and off all day on a thermostat. And again, it's one of the biggest energy users in a home in the Bahamas, along with air conditioning and any refrigerator that's more than 10 years old, I think. Those are the devices that are just energy hogs. So again, through AMI and maybe through some other controls, it's doing a deal with the customer to allow the utility to turn down the water heater in times of high demand for electricity. So what that does is allow us to not have to invest in more power plant, whether it's conventional or whether it's solar, to power all those water heaters at the same time. So again, we call it demand side management, DSM. And what AMI does is open up a whole lot of opportunities for us to work with our customers to provide them better value, reduce the cost of electricity across our system for everyone. My mantra is we want more people paying less for electricity, not less people paying more. And, as we can increase load through electric vehicles, etc., that means the fixed costs of the electricity system are being shared by more people, and therefore the cost per person decreases over time. So that's what we're shooting for. That was my 2.5.
Great 2.5. I have a feeling that our listeners are loving this program and hearing all of this great, innovative information that you're sharing, Dave. So let's go. Tell us, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is something very interesting that a company called Emera Technologies is working on. So Emera Technologies is a sister company of ours, located in Tampa and a couple of other offices throughout the United States. And what they're working on is a system of microgrids called block energy. Now, it sounds a little bit complicated, but all it is basically a group of houses that have solar on the roof and have batteries attached to each home, and maybe even a central battery amongst the group of homes. And what those houses do is share their solar energy between them, share their battery storage between them, as well as having a backup supply from the utility itself. And what that does is, again, allow a greater degree of resilience to that community. And in fact, one of the trial communities that's currently in place just north of Tampa, it was one of the only areas in Tampa where the lights stayed on during the recent passage of Hurricane Ian a few weeks ago. So that community stayed lit. And amongst the 39 homes, they basically shared their energy between themselves from solar and from their batteries until the power came back a day or two later. Of course, both Barbados and the Bahamas are subject to tropical storms and hurricanes from time to time. And I think there's a big opportunity for solar and storage microgrids and even the block energy technology to be applied to new developments of housing in our communities.
Dave, that sounds absolutely impressive. I think it's just amazing to hear all of the various projects that are happening all across the different Emera affiliates, and knowing that we can all benefit from the learning and the experiences gained as a result of it.
I think there's also an opportunity for offshore wind at some point. That's a very popular technology in the eastern United States and in Europe in the North Sea. And again, I think could be very much part of the big wind solution in Barbados. Wind is difficult to build on land. You're never far from somebody's home in Barbados. We know we've been trying to build at Lambert's for over 15 years, and it's very tricky and certainly nigh impossible to build projects of scale. So I think we need to be looking over the ocean blue for some wind power as well. But it's all doable, but it's important we do it at a cost that's affordable for customers. So at the end of the day, it'd be pointless us bragging about all this wind and solar energy if the price of electricity goes up at the end of the day. That would be mission not achieved. The mission we are trying to achieve is to stop spending the hard-earned foreign currency on foreign oil. So stopping the leakage of those dollars out to the oil companies and keeping them on the island in the circular economy of Barbados. So it's a bold vision. We've only got 7 years to go, but we're well on the way. We need to iron out some administrative processes, I think, both within government and within Light and Power and at the regulator, to make sure there's a good level and transparent playing field for everybody. And I'm sure we're going to get there, or we're going to get very close to it over the course of the next 7 to 10 years.
Yes, sounds good. I'm hopeful. Dave, let's look forward globally now. COP27, UN Convention on Climate Change, was held in Egypt this month. Do you feel that the innovations that are taking place in the American Caribbean can help to alleviate the adverse impacts of climate change?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we all need to do our part. All those folks are going off to Egypt as they went off to Glasgow and they went off to Copenhagen. Before that, they'll have lots of meetings and they'll have lots of discussions and they'll come up with some targets. I think it's important that we keep our head down and keep doing the right thing, which is transforming our energy landscape into energy that doesn't use oil. That's all we need to do. It's as simple as that. And it will make a difference. We need the big countries to stop emitting too, but we're not in charge of the big countries. We're part of these little countries, and let's do what we can to get off oil for both environmental and economic reasons.
My guest for Energy Month is Dave McGregor, Chief Operating Officer of Emera Caribbean and President of Grand Bahama Power. Dave, we've been talking about energy transition trends and projects across the Emera family of affiliates in the Caribbean. As president of Grand Bahama, you must also be very keen to see any innovations in renewable energy passed on as savings to your customers on their electricity bills. Firstly, how many customers does Grand Bahama Power have?
In Grand Bahama, we have a little over 19,000 customers.
Okay, so you have 19,000 customers. Over here in Barbados, we have approximately 124,000 customers. So you have a significantly smaller customer base than we do over here. Dave, tell us, what's Grand Bahama Power doing in respect to renewable energy?
I would say Grand Bahama is a little further behind than Barbados on the renewable energy transition. Unfortunately, Grand Bahama was hit by two devastating hurricanes in 2016 and 2019, Category 5 hurricanes, which set us all back at least 5 years, if not more, both in terms of the economy, in terms of our renewable energy plans. But I'm pleased to say I think we're turning the corner now. We've re-engaged our renewable energy plans. We're working with some independent power producers who want to build 15 megawatts of solar on the island. The utility itself is planning to build 5 megawatts of solar. The utility has installed a 9 megawatt battery to help with some what we call frequency control. We used to have a fleet of electric vehicles that was destroyed in the hurricane, unfortunately. So we'll be looking at rebuilding that fleet over the next couple of years. And in Grand Bahama, we're actually installing the same advanced metering infrastructure system as Barbados, AMI, Smart Grid, about halfway through that deployment. So that should be finished next year. So again, we should be able to, replicate some of the successes we've had in Barbados, learn some of the lessons undoubtedly we learned in Barbados, and help Grand Bahama get off the treadmill that is buying foreign fuel oil.
Yes, it does sound like you're doing a lot of progressive work over there, so kudos to the entire team. In Barbados, as elsewhere across the Caribbean, the cost of living has increased. There are financial supply chain challenges, and the price of crude oil products has significantly increased. To give you an example, Light and Power's fuel clause adjustment has risen from 32 cents this time last year to 39 cents per kilowatt hour in October this year. How is Grand Bahama Power shielding its customers from the full impact of these increased costs?
Yes, at Grand Bahama Power, they've been very successful over the last 6 years in particular. The fuel charge has been held at 10 cents US per kilowatt hour since 2016. There was a very small increase that was implemented a month or so ago. So the fuel charge is now 11.5 cents, so up a cent and a half. And how we managed to do that was we implemented what's called a hedging strategy back in 2012 and continue to execute that through to present day. And what that means is we buy oil at a future price that has been, over the last few years, much less than the current world price for oil. So we're currently buying oil at about $50 a barrel rather than the $90 a barrel that it is today. So we can pass those savings directly on to our customer. And our customer has been benefiting every month for at least this last 6 years, and hopefully for 2 or 3 years more as we continue to hedge and shield our customers from the ferocious swings in oil prices we've seen over the years.
Well, you can't see me right now, Dave, but I'm on my feet and I'm giving the entire Grand Bahama Power team standing ovation. Well done. Well done. Dave, it has been a really great catch up. I really wish we had more time. Dave, thank you so much again.
You're welcome, Nicole. Always a pleasure.
What's New Radio is broadcast on radio every month, or you can listen to past episodes on our website, blpc.com.bb. Find us on social media at BLPC Online or tweet BLPC. Our customer service team is always ready to serve you. Call 626-4300 during office hours or 626-9000 for emergency assistance.